Hello, and welcome to another episode of the OnStage Colorado podcast. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca.
And so this is one of our bonus episodes. I don't know if bonus is the right word, but it's like a stripped down episode. So we're not going to do like have an interview or a big main topic or headliners, but there's plenty to talk about. We're going to go through some of the shows we've seen recently, as well as a bit of theater news.
Yeah, so like you said, a bit on the shorter side. I guess maybe we could call it a Tiny Talks with Alex and Toni.
Tiny Talks, yeah. Sometimes when I go out for a walk with my dog in the morning, I'm looking for a podcast. I'll actually not pick the shorter ones because I'm like, oh, that's not long enough, and I don't have to change. I don't mid-walk.
No, I totally hear that. I also do that when I'm like on my treadmill or whatnot. I'm not going to pick something that's under my 60-minute walk. So if you do want a longer episode of the OnStage Colorado podcast, to do that too, you're in luck. We have tons of older hour-plus episodes in our archives. But for those of you who like shorter, bite-sized episodes, this is going to be one of those.
Yep. So, so we can talk about what we've seen in the last week. And boy, have we seen a lot between the two of us. So we were both out at Wonderbound's Rock Ballet. So this is, Wonderbound is our contemporary ballet theater in Denver, and often very impressive work. And I think this was no exception. I think your review of it was spot on. It didn't have like a big story, a main story like a lot of them. It was more like it was like 3 acts basically, and using the music of Bowie, Queen, and the Stones. So So how would you describe the evening?
I mean, I think you just did a pretty good job of describing it. It is 3 very distinct worlds, everything from the costume to even the types of lighting design that are used in each segment. So they all really do have a very specific feel to it. In my opinion, I thought it kind of took a second to build in momentum. The first act is definitely which is set to the music of the Stones, is definitely a little bit more playful and just kind of juvenile in its storyline. It's very much couples together. They're in a car. They have some like little fights. They come back together.
Right.
Pretty simple. The other 2 are a little bit more meaty, which I enjoyed a little bit more. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit more stripped down version of Wonderbound. This is not quite like some of their other past productions like Awakening Beauty that have like a full moving set and a storyline that expand upon 2 acts. So if you're looking for that, that's maybe not what this evening is. But listen, what they do have is a really rocking good time.
Yeah.
It's great music. The dancing is really fun and stylized. And like I mentioned, the two other ones set to the music of Queen and Bowie that kind of close out the evening, I just think are really electric.
Yeah. My friend Matt, who was with me there that night, is, he's around my age. And so a lot of these songs are things that have been in the background of our lives for decades and decades. And we were talking about how it was almost like hearing them fresh, because you have all these young dancers really kind of digging along to these old tunes, and also it's not often that you just listen to them uninterrupted, or just hear, you're not hearing them in the background on the radio or whatever. And they have a really good sound system in there at Wonderbound, so it was really cool to hear some of those songs. There was even one or two. There was a Queen song or two that I hadn't really heard, maybe from their earlier albums. And at least one Stones song from early on too that I hadn't heard. So those were fun.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot more of the group's earlier works from the 60s and the 70s rather than, because some of these people, some of them created over decades, but it really is focused on their earlier work, which I think is interesting, particularly given kind of some of the thematic materials that Garrett Amand is playing with about kind of reflection and time, which I think are really interesting to be explored within the confines of these pop culture touch points.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really, really a fun night. I'm sure I think they've mostly sold out. They might be able to find a single seat ticket or 2 out there, but this will be a fun one for people to get out to. It's not, they often do something that's kind of thematic for scary season or spooky season this time of year. This isn't that. It's just good music and great dancing and a fun night out there. So, but we also were out too, kind of on the other end of the spectrum. We were at the Audacious Immersive's Cult of Cthulhu production, it moves around, but this first weekend was at Ratio Beerworks. Is that what it's called? Or this is the second week? I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's the second weekend, and it was at Ratio Beer Works in Overland. I'm not sure if there's another location, but they do specify in the title.
Yeah, they have one in Rhino, I think, too.
That's right. Yeah, we were talking about that. I think I had been to the one in Rhino, thought that's
Mhm.
where this one was, plugged it into my GPS, and was like getting gradually more and more confused as I was driving south down Broadway.
Yeah. So this one had a lot of problems. It was not Audacious's best work by any means. It also, which surprised me a little bit that it was the second weekend because it seemed so like kind of a mess. But there were issues with the space itself, which were actually in the back in the brewing room with all the big vats and stuff, and they left the door open for a good part of the whole first act,
hmm
and so it was all this noise coming in. And they also had this, they were using an overhead projector to light up sheets that they were holding that had things on them. And like they were blinding half the audience. Everybody's like holding up their hands. And then the story itself was just, there were cats and something. I just didn't understand. Neither of us, we kind of looked at each other like, what? I don't have no idea what that was.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a train wreck, in my opinion. It was very rough technically. Like you said, the storyline was hard to follow. Roughly speaking, there were cult leaders who were presenting their presentations to us, which I got on a surface level.
Yeah.
However, the content of what they were saying seemed to be gesturing at some kind of like H.P. Lovecraft things. Like there were some people, like I was watching a person across the audience from us who seemed to be, her face was lighting up at certain references throughout, but I was just totally lost. All those references went like a mile above my head. And the script doesn't really offer you, as an outsider, a way to kind of connect to what's going on. And so I just was sitting for the whole show very much on the outside of whatever was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I did get the impression that there were some members of the audience that were into it and sort of grokking it, certainly more than we were. And I will also say it was fun. I mean, there was a lot of interactive. There were some pretty funny characters. The cats were funny. The guy with the wings, they gave us one of those little hand clackers that I was having a lot of fun with. They had some weird chants that we were, yelling out. So, I mean, it was fun. It just didn't, it's theater. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think I do want to go. I think you're right, because the bones of something are definitely there. Because as when we walked in, we get sorted into different cults that we're going to be a part of for the evening. And I thought that, I was like, that's a pretty interesting premise. I think I was curious to see how that would be integrated, if we would be separated from each other, and
Mhm.
kind of how interactive it would be. It ultimately opts for a lot less interactive, which version of it what it could be, which I don't think is intrinsically a problem, but the what then we do, and the storyline that unfolds is just kind of a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, because their last one, Woodlands and Wyverns, you're separated, you're assigned a team. I don't know if that's what they called them, but you sat at a certain table and with part of your team, and that was a lot of fun, that you felt like you're part of it. But yeah, here, like you said, it's everybody's just kind of mixed together. So I don't know. I will say that Audacious Immersive also has their ever uh, always fun drunk Christmas coming up in December, which is a lot easier to follow. It's just the Christmas Carol with the actors getting drunk. So that one's always fun. If you didn't get to this one, or you don't want to get to it, that one's coming up as well.
Yeah, Drunk Christmas they've been doing that for years at this point. It's a real staple of the holidays, and like you said, it really is a lot of fun. So definitely be on the lookout for that one coming soon from them.
Yep. So you had on the list here rebuilding. What's that?
So this is a part of the Sundance Film Festival's outreach to the Boulder community. Every month or so, they're doing these kind of events at various venues around Boulder County to just kind of integrate themselves within the community ahead of when they come here in 2027 for the full film festival. And so this was a film created by a Colorado filmmaker about this community that's been devastated by a fire and how they kind of rebuild. It's a topic that hits close to home for pretty much anybody who's lived in Colorado. It's kind of hard to go somewhere in the state at this point and not know somebody who's been affected or know
Hmm.
somebody, or like just know somebody who has had fire. So it's a very personal story. It's very slow, and definitely a tearjerker. Sundance films are often accused of being very sentimental, and this film is not beating those accusations anytime soon. It's definitely kind of a weepy, sentimental, heart on its sleeve kind of film, but I really enjoyed it. And the audience who I was with, it was a packed house at the Dairy Arts Center. The film was introduced by both the film's director, some folks from Sundance, and the team of the Dairy, who was very excited about Sundance being there, and was, I mean, it's already been said that that's one of the spaces that they're going to be utilizing when they come in 2027. So this was kind of an early example of that. I think just like from a technical note, they had captions on and they didn't exactly have the caption settings right. So the captions were like really oddly transparent on the screen. So I think just that it's clear that they're kind of working out some of the kinks in the space, because this was
Hmm.
not the Bodecker Theater where they normally show films, but it was one of the theater spaces that they had a screen dropped in. And so they were
Right.
projecting. And so I think this is really smart that they're coming here, trying out the spaces, because they're gonna, yeah, you don't want to have those errors when you have paying customer, like paying customers coming for the film festival.
Right. Yeah. All right. And then you did a review of this Nosferatu with live orchestra. I can't remember. Did we talk about that last week?
We didn't talk about it last week.
Okay.
We said I was going to go, but I
Okay.
had not been yet. I had been to other orchestra performances, which I've talked about on the show. I've attended their Phantom of the Opera, but this was their version of the 1922 silent film Nosferatu, and it's just a really rocking good time. It was a sold out night of theater over at the Mayan, which is the landmark venue on South Broadway in Denver. And I had got there about like 30, 20, 25, 30 minutes before the film was supposed to start at 7. And there was already a line that wrapped around the movie theater and the Walgreens into the parking lot of people who were dressed up in vampire garb. And the energy was just super raucous. The guy who was taking my tickets had like a Nosferatu mask on and like a whole black robe. So that was kind of the energy of the evening, Alex.
Yeah, read your Tony's review on the site. It's a really intriguing thing, and of course they're going to be doing it again on October 30th, so you have a chance to see it.
That's right. And I would definitely recommend, this is like Wonderbound. Corchestra Orchestra has such a loyal following that they will sell out this space
Hmm.
at the Mayan Theater. So if you're interested in seeing a live score that is improvised slightly each time they play it by this really talented group of local musicians, you definitely want to get your tickets now. They're currently doing a tour of the Midwest with both Phantom of the Opera and Nosferatu. And then they're going to be bringing Nosferatu back on the 30th, like you mentioned.
Yeah, that's great. I got out to Miners Alley to see Diva Royale. So this is a farce, a very silly comedy written by Jeff Daniels from Purple Rose Theater and, of course, movie famedom. And it was really fun. So it was basically these three women played by Emily Patton Davis, Lisa DeCaro, and Amy Arpan, who are big fans of Celine Dion. They're kind of bored Midwestern wives. I think they all have kids in like 6th or 7th grade or something like that. And they find out that their icon, their hero, Celine Dion, is going to be playing like a special show in New York City, like the next day. And so they decide that they're going to make this quest, and so it's about a friendship, but also everything goes wrong. I mean, it's not Celine Dion; it's a drag performer who's doing a Celine Dion thing, and they get mugged and all kinds of. The hotel is a dump and it's a tiny room, and so but the three of them are just adorable. They're so funny. And then Matthew Combs plays the generic man who plays all these roles, like he's the mugger, he's the hotel clerk, he's the cabbie, he's whatever else. And so he was great. There are definitely some holes in the plot. It's a kind of loose, nothing to take too seriously. But I mean, if you want to go somewhere and really laugh. I was saying, you and I were talking about Shucked as being like probably one of the funniest shows we'd seen all year. This is definitely up there as well, and it's like you just want to go out and forget the world and laugh. This is a really good pick. So Diva Royale at Miners Alley is playing through November 9th. well worth checking out.
Wait, that one sounds like a lot of fun. It's rounded out my theatrical weekend by heading over to the Aurora Fox to check out its production of Lizzie.
Yeah.
This is a musical, and it is about Lizzie Borden, she murders her father and her stepmother. It's a very famous American tale based on true events.
With an axe, right?
With an axe. Oh,
yeah,
yes.
That's hardcore.
It is. It's the premise is fairly intense.
Yeah.
This is staged in the studio theater space over at the Aurora, so not the big theater, which I think is the right move for this show. It's a 4-person cast with a live band who is playing behind them, and really impressive technical elements. I have to say, they have this set that is kind of very cage-like in its affect, which is very much clearly supposed to represent the framing of Lizzie's mind. It's kind of this cool chicken coop wiring that wraps around these walls that are just kind of white and gray and dreary. It really creates this very striking effect. And then the team layers projections on top of this that represent various things like paintings in the house, yes, but also more abstract things, like they put video things on there of like children running during a particularly kind of eerie sequence at the beginning where they're singing and stuff. It's supposed to be very creepy. And just other moving things up there. So technically, I found it to be very, very cool. This story is a little bit slow. And actually puts a lot of the action off stage, like the murders, for instance. You don't see them, which is an interesting choice. And you're kind of left grappling with more of the interiority of Lizzie and watching her slow breakdown during Act 1, and then the repercussions of the actions, which is, maybe not the most, it doesn't make for the most action-packed evening of theater, but the 4 actors are pretty good. I think the standouts, in my opinion, were Helen Dresden and Megan Schrader, who are playing the maid and then the girl who lives next door, respectively. And I'm curious to dig into it a little bit more in my review for the site.
Okay, great. Hey, I wanted to ask. So when I went did a tour of the theater with Rich earlier this year to talk about the renovations. They got all new chairs in the main theater, and he talked about some of the stuff they were going to do for that black box space. Has any of that taken place yet? Is there any upgrades? Or I know HVAC was part of it, and maybe some seating. Or
I don't. From just the outside, or from what I could see of the theater itself, there weren't any major upgrades. No changes to the chairs or anything from when I was there last, which was Act of God or something, I think, a little while ago. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a while. They don't do a lot in that space. It's not a bad space.
No, it's really not, except for I hear it's like a beast to heat that space, to heat and cool that space.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the things they were in the process of repairing behind the scenes to maybe make it a little bit more usable. And I'm not sure where they're at in that conversation. May have to follow up with Rich Cowden about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I had 2 other things I was going to mention that are not theater, but they were certainly dramatic. One was the Broncos game yesterday.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Very theatrical.
Like a lot of people, I quit watching after they had their, they turned it over on 4th down, whatever, in the 4th quarter. And there was just no way they were coming back. And so I was making dinner, and Andy came up and was like, hey, why isn't the game on there? It's like they're 3 points. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to watch. And boy, what an exciting time that would have been to be in the stadium, but it was really fun to watch. A real heart-stopping game.
Yeah. I caught the highlights. I can't say I watched that one live, but it's quite an impressive underdog finish to go from 0 to winning the game all in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, 33 points. Well, they have a lot of work to do. They're definitely need to polish their act a little bit more. They can't depend on those kinds of comebacks to get through the rest of the season. But the other thing I want to mention was the No Kings protests or rallies on Saturday were astounding. I think they said over 7 million people participated. I happen to be in Colorado Springs because a friend of mine was in town, and this is a very, very red town, and man, there were a zillion people out there, and it was really a lot of fun. It was really joyous but the costumes, there people were wearing all kinds of inflatable things. It's interesting how that all got communicated somehow, where it was like, I don't know, people were like cosplaying, and there were a lot of frog costumes, and of course the signs, many of them were hilarious. There was like a pun. It was like the pun Olympics to see all those signs out there criticizing the Trump administration. So that was really a ton of fun, and a good way to spend. It was a beautiful day there in Colorado Springs.
That's awesome to hear. Wow, yeah, even down in the Springs.
Yeah. So of course I know that Denver had a huge turnout, and lots of other towns. So
Yes, I live right by the Capitol. And so I popped by for a little bit to just see all the protesters, give my support for just a little bit before I actually had a previous engagement, was checking out Tron with your son. So I had to run to Highlands Ranch, but I stopped by, was cheering people on as I had to head out after a little bit.
yeah, that's great. Well, exciting day. Hopefully it does something. I'm not sure what, but anyway, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk through some recent Colorado theater news or arts news. So stick around. We'll be right back. OnStage Colorado was brought to you by the Aurora Fox Arts Center, presenting Lizzie through November 2nd. With a cast of 4 powerful performers and a dynamic live band, it's a fierce and captivating experience exploring the heated days leading up to the Lizzie Borden murders and her controversial trial. Tickets at aurorafoxartscenter.org. OnStage Colorado is sponsored in part by Colorado Candlelight, featuring Steel Magnolias through November 9th. In a small Louisiana beauty salon, 6 women share humor, love, and strength. It's a play that blends heartwarming comedy with moments of poignant emotion. Tickets at coloradocandlelight.com. We're all supported by the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose production of The Thin Place plays at the Boulder Dairy Center through October 26th. Lucas Nath's play is the story of a teenage girl who claims she can communicate with the dead and brings a recently deceased woman back to life during a church service. Tickets at betc.org. Also supported by Miners Alley Performing Arts Center, presenting Jeff Daniels' Diva Royale through November 9th. It's a comedy about 3 stay-at-home moms from the Midwest who share a deep obsession for Celine Dion and journey to New York City to see her perform. Tickets at minersalley.com. OnStage Colorado is also brought to you by the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College, presenting Raquel's Purple Pineapple Adventures, a joint production with Creed Repertory Theater. This bilingual, family-friendly show is about a girl who just wants to help her family run their campground in the Colorado mountains, but the worst has happened. Summer school. Tickets at fac.coloradocollege.edu. All right, we are back to talk through some news. What's in the old mailbag this week, Tony, or the news bag or newsroom, whatever?
Well, we have a mix. Yeah, we've got a mix of news and some stuff from like the comment section, or the comments that we've gotten recently that we'll be digging through. But I wanted to begin our conversation today with the announcement from last week that President and CEO of the Bonfils-Stanton Foundation, Gary Stewart, will be concluding his tenure in early 2026 after 12 years of leadership over at the organization. And the Bonfils-Stanton Foundation is, of course, known to many arts organizations because they are outside of the SCFD, and actually they even give a lot more money than the SCFD most years. One of the biggest funders of arts in the entire Denver metro area. So pretty important, interesting to see who will replace him. A national search for his successor led by the Bonfils-Stanton Foundation Trustee Search Committee in partnership with Campbell is currently in process. So if you fancy yourself the next leader of the Bonfils-Stanton Foundation, now's the time to put those applications in.
Yeah, I'll do it. You could do it.
Yeah, you go ahead, Alex. Yeah, if what's your pitch? What's your vision for the future of the Bonfils-Stanton Foundation?
I need to
all
work
the money
it out.
to OnStage Colorado.
No. Spread it around. But yeah, arts journalism is definitely something that needs to be funded more, I would say.
Well, to Gary's credit, at his tenure, he actually introduced a program that I'm a part of over at the Bonfils-Stanton Foundation. Full disclosure. I'm one of their resident storytellers over there, so I do work for them. They're actually tangibly investing in the future of arts journalism, producing content and paying for long-form journalism. And I'm doing some really long-form reporting for them that they've been funding me throughout, which, I mean, That's not something that you can say from a lot of organizations, particularly arts funders. So it's a really cool thing they did. In addition, he's also championed other policies and practices that have enhanced diversity, equity, and inclusion across the whole organization, including, I thought this was really interesting, the share of grants directed to BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, and disability-led organizations grew from just 2% in 2012 to 40% today.
That's great.
And then it also, from like another really interesting thing that he helped lead, was multi-year generational operating grants and nimble funding opportunities that really enable funding in support in really, really impactful ways. Like they gave funding to help Cleo Parker Robinson get back on track when they were having some financial troubles a few years ago, and then help build out these renovations on the space to help them grow for the future. So they're giving both operational as well as capital support, which is really distinct for funders. That's not always true.
Yeah. Hey, going back to this journalism that you're doing for them, what kind of stories are you doing? Where can people find them? Who else is doing them? What can you say about that?
Yeah, I can definitely talk a little bit more about that. So I have been doing, at the moment, largely stories about leadership as well as space in the city. And so these include topics like I have profiled the leaders of Family Theater Company. And then I've also done pieces on like how Redline, which is a contemporary art space, their efforts to open up its space to the community, as well as its efforts that it's made to actually purchase land to build out artist residency spaces and just increase their capital, which is, it's just I think those pieces are really impactful. But then I've also been, speaking to those long form pieces, I've been doing a deep dive into the SCFD and how the tier system works, as well as getting paid to kind of interview its regional peers around the country. So there are other regional arts funding tax district grants that are set up similar, not the same, to SCFD around the country. And I've been sitting down with our counterparts and asking, what do they do? What do they like about what we do? What should we be doing differently, if anything? What can we learn? So I'm really excited to share the workings of that. And this is all on the Bonfils-Stanton Foundation's website at it's the /stories section of it. So Bonfils-Stantonfoundation.org/stories.
Okay. Great. Well, that sounds really cool. I knew you were working on those for a while. I think Lisa Kennedy's been pitching in some stories as well.
Lisa Kennedy is my editor over there.
Okay.
She is so she's kind of been directing me through things. The next thing on the horizon that we've been working on together is that really interesting piece on the Savoy and Theater Artibus and how they do really incredible art, but they're an organization who is struggling to just make ends meet. They own that space, which means they own the entire cost of everything. Taxes keep going up. They told me they pay about $60,000 to $70,000 a year just in property taxes, in those. So then that grows every single year, because as I confirmed with the city makes no distinction between commercial spaces and nonprofit art spaces. So in the city's mind, they don't care whether, and they frame it a little bit differently, but it doesn't really matter what the space is being used for, must be profitable above all else or get out.
Cool. Well, definitely check out those stories on the Bonfils-Stanton website to see some more of Toni Tresca's amazing arts journalism.
Oh, well, you're too kind, Alex. Thank you.
Speaking of which, you did a preview story on our website about the 48th Denver Film Festival coming up, and you interviewed artistic director Matt Campbell. Do you want to summarize what's going on with all that and what he had to say?
Yeah, it was really fun talking with Matt. We chatted over the phone. It was 2 weeks out from this 10-day event that he said he expects to draw 40 to 50,000 attendees. And I think the thing that I was just most impressed by was he told me he personally watches 5,000 films a year. So
what?
That's over
that doesn't
a
sound
film
possible.
a day. It's more than a film a day. Yeah. And so, and in total, the Denver Film Festival receives roughly 1,800 films that he and his team watch to kind of curate the 145 films that make up the festival that runs October 31st through November 9th.
Wow. Yeah. So definitely check out Tony's story if you want to get some of the inside scoop on what's happening at the film festival this year. It sounds like, this goes the usual high profile previews, or I'm sorry, debuts or premieres, like George Clooney's new film. What's that one called?
J. Kelly.
J. Kelly, and then the new Knives Out film, and the Broncos. There's an Elway documentary that is going to be of high interest to Colorado folks, probably, and also all kinds of other stuff: small films, big films, black and white films. I don't know, silent films. I did a little bit of everything. Maybe no silent films.
Little bit of everything. They have, I would say that this film, they really do a good job of curating kind of the best in terms of the awards fair. So if you are an Oscar person hunting for those films to kind of watch before you fill out your ballots, aka me, this is a great film festival for that. They also have a lot of documentaries, which I think is not always true at every single film festival. And then they've got a lot of really weird late night picks too, that kind of round out the festival in really interesting ways. So a lot of weird picks for the weirdos.
Oh, I should mention another Colorado premiere of interest is this documentary called Creed USA, which is about the town of Creed, which of course is basically a theater town for the Creed Repertory Theater. There's not a whole lot else going on down there, so I'm assuming that the theater is featured in that doc, but I don't know.
It is very much featured in the documentary. It talks about both its history as a mining town and then how it's evolved into the 21st century as this theater town, which it's just really, that is just a really fascinating dichotomy that the filmmaker has identified, that transition that's occurred in this really rural area of Colorado.
Yeah. And, not just in Colorado, but Creed is like, I can't think of too other towns. I mean, of course, New York is sort of, and London is big theater town cities, but not like a theater town where like theater is the dominant, economic activity of the town for the year. And then mostly in the summer, and then the rest of the year, pretty much like everybody leaves. There's like 400, I think there's 400 people, full-time residents there or something like that. So yeah, it's really, really interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one.
Yep, me too. I'm going to be there at the screening of that they're doing on, I believe it's, November 4th. And that's it. So I'm sure that one's, and that has an in-person guest. The director-producer is going to be there. So excited to hear about that. But yeah, apparently it's a 300-person mining town.
Okay. All right. Another bit of news this week is that the DCPA Cabaret announced the cast for their upcoming Dracula, a comedy of terrors. So this is in the Garnet Galleria space there. They usually pick some kind of musical comedy of some sort that runs for several months. So this one will be running November 8th all the way into May of next year. It's tickets are on sale now. So this one included I caught my eye just because some of the cast members. So Leslie O'Carroll plays Renfield, Dr. Westfeld, Captain, and a manning wolf. So Leslie is one of our gems of a comic actor here in Colorado. So I would go just to see her. But also we've been talking about the Robinson team, Adrienne Lee Robinson and her husband, Marco Alberto Robinson, who we just saw on stage at Lone Tree's production of Nice Work If You Can Get It. Fantastic together. So they're playing, so Marco's as Dracula, and Adrienne is Lucy, Kitty, Driver, and also a man-eating wolf. And then another well-known face, especially particularly on the Colorado Shakespeare Festival stage, is Sean Scrutchins. Scrutchins as Harker, Cavendish, Worthington, Havermercy, Bosun, Gravedigger. So it's one of those kinds of shows where everybody's, except for it sounds like Marco, plays lots of different roles.
Yeah. I wonder if Adrienne and Marco now, they go into auditions together and like, we're a package deal. We come together, we don't come at all. I'm sure it's not actually like that, but I just wonder how that's been happening quite a bit lately on Colorado stages. A Gentleman's Guide, like you mentioned, Nice Work, and now this. And what I love to see about this too is this is a nice long run at the Garner Galleria Theater, November 8th, 2025 through May 10th, 2026. So 6 months, and it's a lot of Colorado actors in the cast doing this show, which you just love to see that they're getting a paycheck for that long.
Yeah, yeah. So, that lineup in the Garner Galleria with the cabaret series can be hit or miss. Sometimes they've had some dogs in there that they're stuck with forever. But this one sounds like it'll be a good one. This is as it's called, a Bram new comedy. Get it? That you can. Oh, it's just there's so many puns in this little blurb here, but a 90-minute gender-bending, quick-changing, laugh-out-loud reimagining of the Gothic classic, perfect for audiences of all blood types. Har har har. So yeah, so that's one I will definitely be at to see what's going on with that one.
Yep, looking forward to checking that one out myself as well.
Yep. And then the last thing I was going to mention was I had a note from a fellow named Garth Gersten. He's an attorney in Boulder, I think. But he talked about how, they've had season tickets to the DCPA since they moved to Colorado in 2017, and was talking about the sound issues at the Buell Theater. From his perspective, he just says it's been getting worse and worse. And so we've talked about this a little bit before. I mean, they've had, things where the mix just doesn't sound right, where you can't really hear the singing very well. And also some real just complete fails where mics weren't working and things like this. And what do we know about this? And how do you know how these work? Is it does the show bring its own sound engineer, or is it all, the house staff that's doing it?
I'll admit I don't know a ton about the subject. I know that the Denver Center has said that they renovated sound as part of the renovations that they did a couple of years ago. I assume that means in the Buell, though I'm not 100% sure. And then as for all the touring shows do list sound engineers that they bring in.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that they do bring in their own team. But then I like you, I'm often and this one of our readers, Garth, I'm often perplexed at how poor the sound quality is in what is supposed to be the most professional stage in Colorado.
Yeah, and he says, it's gotten so that we're contemplating not renewing. So, if other patrons are feeling the same way, this sounds like something DCPA really needs to address. And apparently, it's not the figment of our imagination that this is going on.
And I often have wondered if, and I'll write in my reviews, I wonder if this will clean up as the show goes on. But I thought what was interesting about Garth's comment was that he mentioned they have the second Tuesday scheduled, in part, quote, because we expect any issues with the touring shows performed at the Buell would be worked out in the first week, yet time and again, we find lyrics indecipherable, even with shows we know. So it seems like that those sound issues are not, in fact, clearing up as the shows go on.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, to be continued. If anybody else has thoughts about that, shoot us an email at info@onstagecolorado.com, and hopefully something will change.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our show for this week. Alex, so what's coming up on the pod next week?
I don't know. We haven't really figured that out yet, but we'll think of something. We always do, right, Tony?
We certainly do always find a way, Alex.
Yep. So, and then upcoming on the website, we've got you've got your review of Rock Ballet from Wonderbound is up. Lizzie, you will have up. So you also have coming up. We're going to go see this. Every time I look at the name of this play, it just makes me laugh. It's called The Motherfucker with the Hat, which is a comedy of some sort. It'll be at the Three Leeches. I think it's a theater flamboyant production.
That's right.
So I don't know much about that one, so looking forward to seeing that. Then you're gonna The Lion King. You're gonna go and review that. I reviewed this, the touring production in 2021, so we figured it's time for a fresh Lion King review. And all kinds of other stuff coming up on the site. And then talk just a little bit about the coverage that we're going to have of the Denver Film Festival.
I've been excited about this for a little while. I've been just planning out my schedule of coverage that I'll be doing for the first week of the Denver Film Festival for 7 of the 10 days. And I'm really just going to be trying to hit as much of the big films as possible to share reviews on the site of those screenings of note. So be kicking us off with stuff like Knives Is Out, and then covering some of the smaller local stuff like Creed USA, which we talked about a little bit before, and just really doing my best to kind of share the experience of being at the Denver Film Festival with our readers.
Yeah, looking forward to checking that out. You're going to be a busy guy trying to get to all these films and write about them.
I am going to be busy, but I love that. I like being busy. And I love film, as I've talked about often
Yep.
on this show and in real life. I love it, and so this is definitely like one of the highlights of my year. And so it's a real privilege to be able to share that experience with folks.
Hmm. Great. I had one last thing I wanted to mention. Again, that we started this a discount page on the website, and it's pretty lean right now. But I'm hoping that as theaters find out about it, that they'll start sending stuff in. But theaters are often putting out discounts for one reason or another, or like this will be too late for this one. But like for example, Miners Alley is doing a Denver Actors Fund fundraiser for Diva Royale on the 20th. And stuff like that. So if you've a theater and you've got discounts coming up, shoot us an email and we'll get it on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a really great resource to have. So maybe just bookmark that page so that you don't miss any of the deals, because that's a page that you're updating pretty frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you want to stay up to date on that, as well as what is going on in theaters across the state, make sure you're subscribed to the OnStage Colorado Theater Blast, which is a newsletter that comes out every Thursday that just kind of features a roundup of all the work that we do on the site, as well as a very lengthy list of all of the things that are happening on stage for that upcoming week.
Yep. Yeah, that one is something I just started a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, because I got a tool that allowed me to export that easily into a list. So, it's a great way to just kind of do a quick glance of what's coming up around the state. So, all right. Well, that's all for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we'll see you at the show.